Dear students, welcome to our series on ethics case studies. So, today in this lecture, we will again pick up a particular case study which has been asked in UPSC examination 2022. And what is the central theme of this particular case study that we are going to discuss is what is the role of empathy for a civil servant. In fact, there is a topic or a syllabus that is given in the ethics paper which talks about the foundational values of civil service. As a civil servant, as someone who is aspiring to be a civil servant, should have a number of qualities, and one of the quality that is also highlighted in the syllabus is being empathetic. Empathy or being empathetic towards others means that putting yourself in a position of others, thinking from others' point of view. That is basically what is empathy. Now, is this empathy an important quality for a civil servant? And this case study is revolving around this particular aspect of empathy. Not just empathy, there are also other areas that is associated, but this is the central theme in this particular case study. So, let us move forward and let us try to understand about this particular case study. So, we are in lecture number 6 on the series of lectures on ethical case studies, which is part of your GS paper 4, and I am Babu Gunashekaran, faculty for Indian Polity and Governance, and I also teach the ethics case studies, and I also secured IAS rank in Civil Service Examination 2016. So, let us move forward, let us try to understand about this particular case. First, let me just give a brief introduction about this particular case, and then I will also go through the case for you to understand the various ethical issues in this particular case. Now, what is this case is all about? There is an individual called as Rakesh. Now, Rakesh is a joint commissioner in a transport department in a particular city. And Rakesh, who is a joint commissioner, he has to look into majorly the transport department among the other duties that he has been assigned. And a case comes in front of Rakesh, and when he is looking at this case, the case is all about that a bus driver who is part of the city transport department has died in the line of duty. And when he looks further into the case, he understands as to how this incident has happened. The bus driver was driving a bus on a given day, on an unfortunate day, on a busy road in the city, and that time the road was very congested, and in an intersection he met with an accident with a car driver, and subsequently there was an altercation. There was a fight between the bus driver and the car driver, and the car driver seems to be a middle-aged man, and in this case the bus driver was 52 years old. So, they engaged in an altercation, and subsequently the report also highlights that who has started the physical violence during the altercation. It was initiated by the bus driver, and then subsequently there was a response from the car driver also, despite the fact that people around them, the public, were trying to resolve this dispute, but they are not very successful, and subsequently both were badly injured, and then they are later admitted in the hospital. But however, the driver succumbed to the injury, and the driver has lost the life, the bus driver. And although badly injured, fortunately the car driver has not lost his life, but although he also sustained severe injuries. So, this is the case that is put in front of Rakesh, and the management, that is the city transport department, the management decides that Rakesh has to decide in this particular case, but the mood of the city transport department is that they are not going to give any full compensation to the bus driver, the deceased, the died bus driver, because they felt that his conduct was not appropriate. And ultimately, but Rakesh has to decide this, but at the same time Rakesh looks into the family profile of the driver who has lost his life. He has a surviving wife and two girl child, one is school going, another is college going. So, in the circumstances, Rakesh has to decide whether to give full compensation or not to give full compensation. But as of now, the mood is that they don't want to give full compensation for the deceased driver's family. But however, the union, the drivers union, which is part of the city transport department, they have took this particular matter and they have engaged in strike against the management idea, against the management decision not to give full compensation. The union has placed two demands in front of the Rakesh who is handling this particular issue on behalf of the management, that first a full compensation has to be given to the deceased driver's family, and a particular member in the family should be offered a job. So, these are the two demands that has been placed by the union, but for the last 10 days the union have also engaged in what is called as a strike. and because of the strike, nothing has moved forward. So, in both the cases, it is to be decided by now the Rakesh that whether to accept the demand which is made by the union or to go with the decision that is taken by the management. Under such a circumstances, there are certain directives in this case. So, let us also try to understand as to what are the directives. So, this is exactly what is this particular case. I will also go through the case very fastly, so that you can also understand the minor ethical issues in the case. So, as far as a case is concerned, what is the first priority? What you should understand whenever you take up a case study? First, try to read and reread the case study. Try to understand as to who are the various stakeholders involved in this particular case study. What are the various ethical issues in this particular case study? Do not assume something which is not given in the case study. It is very, very important. So, you should not have any preconceived notions. Strictly answer the question based on what is given. But yes, of course, you can use the laws in our country, prevailing laws, which may be associated with this particular case study in explaining your answer. Alright, so with this, we will just get into the case. So, I am just going to the case. So, before I go into the case, here you can see that StudyIQ has launched its prelims to interview online English batches. Not only the English batches, you have the batches in English as well as in the English and the Hindi languages. And as the name suggests, prelims to interview means it covers every aspect right from the prelims till the interview stage. So, if you are interested in taking admissions, you can visit the StudyIQ website, you can download the brochure and you can go through the details of these courses. And if you want to take an admission on these courses, the last day to take admissions for the month of August is 31st of August 2023, and all these batches would be live evening batches. So, working students can think about all those things. And in case if you are interested, you can use my code Babu. If you use this code Babu, you will get an extra discount on the price that is offered in these courses. Alright. With that, let me just get into the case. Very quickly, I will go through the case because I already explained the case. It is just to make you further understand the case. So, you can see here, Rakesh was working as a joint commissioner in a transport department of a city. As a part of his job profile, among others, he was entrusted with the task of overseeing the control and functioning of the city transport department. So, basically, he is the one who has to take care of the transport in that particular city. And here you can see he is a joint commissioner in that particular department. A case of strike by the drivers union of city transport department over the issue of compensation to a driver who died on duty while driving the bus came before him for a decision in the matter. That means ultimately Rakesh have to decide. So, Rakesh is to decide, is to look into the various issues, and it is Rakesh who will undergo various dilemmas in this particular case. As we will proceed, you will understand that. So, ultimately the decision has to be taken by Rakesh. So, he gathered that the driver, so Rakesh is gathering this information. Rakesh gathered that the driver Dickies, that is who lost his life, was flying bus number 528, which passed through a busy and a congested road through the city. So, you can understand that on the day, is there any lapses on the part of the driver, because it is saying that he is driving the bus in a busy and a congested road. So, there is a possibility that the accident might happen. Okay, so that is the implied understanding here. It also happened that near an intersection on the way. So, there is an intersection possibility that it is an area which is prone to accident. There was an accident involving a bus and a car driver by a middle-aged man. So, the car was driven by a middle-aged man. It was found that there was an altercation between the driver and the car driver. Heated arguments between them led to a fight and the driver gave him a blow. So, who started it? It is a bus driver who started giving him the blow. Lot of passerbys had gathered and tried to intervene but without success. So, that means it has led to a physical assault, and then subsequently the passerbys tried to prevent that, but they are not able to control this. Eventually, both of them were badly injured and profusely bleeding and were taken to the nearby hospital. The driver succumbed to the injuries and could not be saved. The middle-aged driver's conditions were also critical, but after a day, he recovered and was discharged. So, because of the altercation, there was severe injuries to both the parties, but the driver unfortunately succumbed to the injuries, but the driver fortunately, the car driver has not lost his life, but he also sustained severe injuries. Police had immediately come to the spot of the accident and an FIR was registered. The police investigation revealed that the quarrel in the investigation was started by the bus driver and he had resorted to the physical violence. So, the FIR is also clearly saying that who has started the violence? It is a bus driver who is part of the city transport department who has started to resorting to violence. And it is only that the car driver responded to his action. There was exchange of blows between them. The city transport department management is considering of not. So, they are considering of not giving an extra compensation. So, the mood of the city transport department is that they don't want to give full compensation for the driver who lost his life, because they are not happy with the conduct, the way that he has behaved in this particular incident, because of the issues that is involved with that. We will discuss that. To the driver's deceased family, the family is very aggrieved, but because of this decision, the family is very aggrieved, depressed and agitated against the discriminatory and non-sympathetic approach. That means in other cases where the drivers have lost their life, they have given full compensation. And in this case, the family feels they should be sympathetic towards the family also, because you'll understand that the family is survived by a wife and two school-going children. So, we will subsequently understand that. So, approach the non-sympathetic approach of the city transport management. The bus driver deceased was 52 years of age. That means here you can understand that he has gone a lot of service. Although the information is not there at what age he has joined, but he has substantial amount of time has been invested in this service, because he is almost 52 years of age, and he has a lot of service which is also pending. A substantial service is pending. Was survived by his wife and two school and college going daughters. So, he was a sole earner of the family. So, here it means that the family definitely needs the support. So, that is where the empathy of Rakesh will play an important role in this case. So, he was a sole earner of the family. The city transport department workers union took up this case, and when found no favorable response from the management, they decided to go on a strike. The union demand was twofold. So, when they feel that the family may not get full compensation, this matter was taken up by the union, and the union have now placed twofold demands in front of the management. What are the demands? First, full extra compensation as given to the other drivers without any discrimination, so who died on duty. And secondly, the employment to one of the family members. The strike has continued for 10 days and the deadlock remains. Two demands were made. So, give full compensation and give job to one family member, so that their livelihood can be taken care. But however, for the last 10 days, the strike also continued. The management is also persistent with their idea of not giving full compensation. For the last 10 days, the impasse continued, and in this situation, Rakesh has to decide. And the management has given, as per the case study, Rakesh to decide this particular case. So, here one more important issue is also involved. For the last 10 days, the public is also affected. The public is also affected because of the fact that public transport is an essential service. And this essential service, if the drivers go on strike, it is also going to impact. So, this is one serious ethical issue in this particular case, not only that particular area. So, here the city management does not wanted to, transport management does not wanted to give full compensation, because they wanted to ensure discipline on the part of the drivers. Their conduct has to be good, because they are working with the public. They have tarnished the image of the city transport department, and they also do not wanted to set a bad precedent in the future if this incident is to happen. And at the same time, the decision should also take into consideration that the management has to compassionate towards the deceased family members of the driver. A wife is there, and then two girl childs are there. One is school going and other is college going. And what about their education? What about their future if the father has already died? So, as an officer, Rakesh has to balance the interest of the management and balance the interest of the general public, because the services has to be ensured to them, and the interest of the family members of the deceased driver. So, in this circumstances, Rakesh has to decide. So, he is also put under a lot of ethical dilemmas. Under these circumstances, let us try to understand as to what are the directives given in the question first. So, here you can see what are the directives that is given in the question. What are the options available to Rakesh to meet the above situation? 2. Critically examine each of the options identified by Rakesh. That means first identify certain options, and once you identify the options, critically analyze the pros and cons of those options as well. What are the ethical dilemmas being faced by Rakesh? So, Rakesh can have number of options to decide, and before deciding, although he feels that he has multiple options, which one he is to decide? So, what are the dilemmas in deciding various options? What course of action would Rakesh adopt to diffuse the above conditions? So, this is what course of action. That means under such a situation, what are the series of steps that Rakesh can take? to diffuse the situation. So, that is the last directive. So, let us try to understand all these directives very quickly one by one. But before I go to the directives, what is the major subject matter as far as in this particular case study is concerned? The subject matter is the foundational values for civil service. Empathy is one of the important foundational values for civil service. Is Rakesh empathetic enough? Because as a civil servant, you should also be empathetic towards your subordinates. So here the driver is none other than he is a subordinate of Rakesh. So is he empathetic enough towards the deceased family members? Because their future should also be taken into consideration, and of course the driver has spent a lot of time. He has served the transport department and he has also provided public service by doing this. So is he empathetic towards them? So that is one of the major areas where this particular case study is concerning. And apart from that, there are certain ethical issues, that is concerns and dilemmas as a part of being a government, as a part of being an employee in the government. Now Rakesh has to decide on part of the management, so who represents the government, and at the same time there are a lot of ethical issues for him. So on the one hand he has to represent the interest of the management, on the other hand he has to represent the interest of the public. There is another thing also, he has to represent the interest of the family members also. So there is a lot of ethical dilemmas for him. If he is trying to take care of the management completely, he may have to take care of the interest of that particular family also. If he is trying to take care of the interest of the family members, being empathetic towards them, then he has to give away his responsibility towards the management. So how is he going to balance all those things? So he is of course put under a lot of ethical dilemmas. That is what we will have to basically understand in this particular case study. So who are the stakeholders? So try to identify the various parties involved in this particular case study. So first and foremost, it is the family members of the deceased driver. So any decision that will be taken by Rakesh is going to have an impact on them. It can have a positive impact, it can have a negative impact. Suppose if the compensation is full and job is given, they will be happy. Otherwise, they have to go through a very tough situation. So they are stakeholders. The union members, they are also. For the last 10 days, they have been engaging in strike and they have been very persistent. If you don't accept to the demand, then it can what? It can demotivate them. It can definitely demotivate them, and their morale can be brought down. And at the same time, 10 days that if they are going on strike, then it is also affecting the public service. Then the general public is also affected because of that. So they are also stakeholder in this. And then Rakesh and the transport department. So ultimately Rakesh has to decide. So Rakesh is thinking about this. He is thinking about the various ethical issues in this. He is thinking about how to discipline the employees. So, and the management, which is represented by Rakesh in this case. So they are also stakeholder. The car driver who has suffered an injury. So the car driver has also unnecessarily suffered an injury. Although they have met with an accident, the accident is not intentional. So justice should be ensured to this car driver also. So that is again there. And then there is something, there is a traffic management. So if you see the traffic management, traffic department is also important role to play in this. So when you see the traffic department has an important role to play because of the fact that probably the traffic department could be proactive in putting some traffic signals. Suppose if it is a very congested road and there is a possibility of accident, the traffic management can be proactive. So they should also be a stakeholder in this, because accident is related to the traffic department as well. So they are the various stakeholders as far as I am concerned. So now let us just try to quickly touch upon the ethical issues. So ethical issues, whether they ask it in the question explicitly as a directive or not, you try to identify the ethical issues in a case. So what are the ethical issues? Whatever is the problem that you can come across in a case study. So whatever you feel is not ethically right, or whatever you feel is not legally right, whatever you feel is not correct in a particular case study, just try to write down. When you read the case study, just try to write down or mark it somewhere, so that these ethical issues will help you to come out with various options. So whether it is explicitly asked in the question or not, make it a practice that you will note down the ethical issues. So quickly, if you go through the things, now physical assault by the deceased driver. The driver has engaged in physical violence. He should not have resorted to that too, despite being a public servant. He is someone who is serving the public. So in a responsible role, he should not have resorted to violence, whatever may be the situation. We do not know what kind of situation, but we understand that driving a bus, let us assume, in a congested road is a very stressful environment. That is all right. But at the same time, he should have the responsibility of not engaging in violence at least. Okay, so that is an ethical concern on the part of the behavior of the individual. and it may be against the conduct rules of the organization as well. Now, the next issue is the unfortunate death of the driver. So, although his conduct is not right, but death is something really unfortunate. That is an ethical issue. And the injury to the car driver, that is again an unfortunate thing. So, the injury that has happened to a common man, that is really unfortunate. And all these things has happened in the ground that now the department is very discriminatory and unsympathetic attitude of the management. That is again a big concern, because what will happen to the family members, because the driver who has lost his life is only the sole breadwinner. So, should the management be sympathetic? Should the management on compassionate grounds, should them give them the full compensation? But they are adamant as to not to give the full compensation, as at least the mood till the time Rakesh decides that they don't want to give full compensation. So, that is again an ethical issue. What will happen to the future of the family members of the deceased driver? What about the two girls who are going to school and college? Who is going to take care of them? What the mother will do without the husband? So, all these things are some of the ethical issues. So, they are in badly need of a job, and also that of what? And also that of the full compensation. And then interruption in the essential services. Okay, on the one hand, the union wanted to take care of their co-worker who has lost his life, because they feel them as a part of the family. That is all right. But in the way of taking care of the interest of the colleague and their family members, the deceased colleague, you are not providing services to the public. The public has not done any harm, and then the public are suffering. And of course, if the public transport is not running, which is an essential service, and it is going to cause a lot of difficulties to the public. So, that is again an ethical issue. So, these are all the various ethical issues in my opinion. Now, let us move to the directives in the question. So, what is the first directive in the question? What the question is asking? What are the options available to Rakesh to meet the above situations, and critically examine each of the options identified by Rakesh. So, let me just put down the options, and here itself I will critically examine each and every options. That means, what is the decision that can be made by Rakesh, and also the advantages, disadvantages, or the pros and cons of these from an ethical point of view or a legal point of view. What can be the pros and cons? That is what we will have to understand. So, you can see the first option. So, I am suggesting all the students who are looking into this particular lecture, do not restrict yourself only to these options. You can also actively think, and you can put your options in the comment box, so that multiple ideas can come out. And the idea of this particular series is to make you think and to make you discuss all those things, so that you can immensely benefit out of this particular series. Alright, so see the first option. So, what is the first option that you can decide? So, not necessarily every option should be ethically right option or a good option. There can be a bad option also, because an individual has to think from multiple dimensions. There are various interests that is involved. So, not necessarily that in each and every interest you will have to take care of the interest of the different stakeholders. You satisfy the interest of some stakeholders, probably one option Rakesh is deciding on taking a decision only based on the interest of the management. In other, he is deciding completely on the interest of the family members. In other, he is trying to balance, but try to put one best option as far as whatever is concerned. He is trying to balance the interest of all the stakeholders. So, come to statement number first option. Decide not to give extra compensation. So, he is deciding not to give extra compensation as the conduct of the deceased driver was not appropriate, and to set a precedent for the future. So, this is his first option. So, despite all those things, he is deciding that no extra compensation will be given in this case to the deceased family members. Why? Because the conduct of the driver was not appropriate. It is violating the conduct rules. The FIR clearly states that he is the one who resorted to violence and not otherwise. And this has tarnished the image of the public transport department, and he does not want to set a bad precedent in the future. In the future, if such incident happens, then they are not going to follow all those things, and hence he wanted to be very strict on this. So, here he is trying to take care of the interest of the management, but on the flip side, see, is he compassionate enough to the family members? Is he empathetic towards the family members? Yes, of course, the driver has engaged in some act which is affecting the interest of the organization, but is he compassionate enough? Is he ethical enough in deciding this? And if he is not giving the compensation, if he is not accepting, then the drivers of the union have also said that they are not going to start the service, which is also affecting the public. So, these are the flip side of this particular option. Come to the second option. Decide in favor of extra compensation and job for the wife for the deceased driver taking into consideration their future. So, here in this option he is deciding in favor of giving an extra compensation. So, this is exactly what is demanded by the union members. So, he is doing that also, and he is also giving a job to the wife of the deceased driver. So, that is also good because he is thinking of the education of the child. So, he does not want to disturb them. So, the wife is given a job. So, this is what he is thinking. So, the deceased driver taking into consideration their future. So, here the advantage is he has been compassionate. He has been compassionate, and also what he is trying to do, he is also trying to take care of the family member and their needs in the future. But is he taking care of the interest of the organization, what this happens in the future? So, he should also bring in certain guidelines that make some measures to avoid that this does not happen in the future. Or if this happens in the future, then they may not get the compensation, because as a public servant you will have to maintain certain level of behavior and certain conduct rules when you are carrying out your public service. So, here although the interest of the family members are taken care and the union members will be happy, but you will have to set some standards for the government employees as well who are part of the public service. So, then you come to the third option, he accept to the demand of the union on certain terms and conditions. That means he is not accepting to the demand, he is accepting to the demand of the union. That means he is accepting to both options, that they will give you compensation, full compensation, and job will be given to one family members, preferably the wife, but on certain terms and conditions, that the management will reserve the right to reduce the compensation in the future cases for inappropriate behavior or for violating the conduct rules at work. So, what Rakesh is trying to do is that in this case, on a compassionate ground, we are doing it, but in the future the union members have to accept to this, that in the future if a same incident happens, then we will not provide, or we may not take the compassionate route, and we reserve the right whether to give full compensation or to reduce the compensation. In this case I am allowing it because till that point of time the management has not given these guidelines, but henceforth we want the employees to properly behave, and unfortunately if they lose their life, it is all right. But if it is because of their inappropriate behavior, if something happens, then the management may reserve the right to give the full compensation or not to give the full compensation. If you agree to these terms, then in this case I am agreeing to that. So, in this case he is trying to address the issue, and in this case he is being compassionate to the family members, and he is also trying to put an end to the strike that is happening, because of which the public is affected. At the same time, what he is trying to do, at the same time he is also trying to bring in certain element of discipline in the drivers who is engaged in the public service. So, to me it seems to be the most appropriate option, although they have not asked it. So, this seems to be a better option. Or the last option that he can do is he can act against the union members as per the existing rules and regulations. Now, please understand, there is an act which is passed by the parliament which is called as Essential Services Maintenance Act. Under the Essential Services Maintenance Act, certain services are considered to be essential services, and in fact transport is an essential service, public transport, and for 10 days if they are making a strike, then it is going to create a lot of problem to the members, lot of problems to the public, and hence the act also allows the management to act against them legally. So, he can act against them legally also in this case, but will that be an appropriate option? In this case he may act against them, but it is not going to provide any relief to the deceased family members, and he is also putting the morale of the union members at the lowest side. So, to me this is also not an appropriate action, but it is not legally wrong to do that, but is it ethically right to do it under the present circumstances is what we have to think. So, to me option 3 seems to be the most appropriate thing in the present circumstances, taking into consideration the legal things, taking into consideration the public, and also taking into consideration taking care of the interest of the management and also the interest of the deceased family members. Okay, so that would be the appropriate one, although they have not asked it. Now, come to the next directive in the question. So, what are the ethical dilemmas being faced by Rakesh? If you see the ethical dilemmas being faced by Rakesh, that what are the things that is running in mind to decide a suitable option or decide a suitable action, take a suitable action or a decision in this matter. So, first dilemma is whether to take care of the organizational interest or whether to take care of the interest of the deceased family members. If I have to take care of the organizational interest, I should not give the compensation. If I don't give the compensation, then it may affect the interest of whom? Interest of the family members. I should be compassionate towards them as an individual, as someone who is a co-worker who has died, a subordinate who has died. But at the same time, I am representing the management. I am in a position to ensure discipline also. I have to ensure a proper conduct rules. So this is the biggest dilemma as to whether to take care of the organizational interest or the interest of the deceased family members. The next thing is the interruption of the public service. So on the other hand, what is the thing that is affecting him is the interruption of the public service versus ensuring good conduct and discipline. When you think of ensuring the good conduct and discipline, so all that from the management perspective, he wanted to ensure good conduct and discipline. He doesn't want such incident to occur in the future. He want every person who is part of the public service wanted to work with proper discipline and to observe proper conduct rules. But the union is very tough. The union has gone for a strike, and for the last 10 days they are adamant on the strike. And if he is willing to ensure the discipline and the union is not willing to give up as long as the compensation is given to the family members, so that can have an impact on the public service as well. So he has to take care of the interest of the public as well. So under these circumstances, Rakesh has to make a decision. So he has to go through all these ethical dilemmas, and then accordingly Rakesh has to decide. So this is basically the ethical dilemmas he might have to face. Now the last directives in the question: what course of action would Rakesh adopt to diffuse the above situation? So what is the course of action would Rakesh take to diffuse the above situation? 1. Call upon the representatives of the union and place in front of them the above facts. So what is the course of action he would decide? He would decide the following course of action. Course of action means what is the thing that he has to continuously follow one by one. So one by one, this is the course of action he has to follow. If you see one by one the course of action, the first thing is, so first he can call upon the representatives of the union and place in front of them the available facts. So these are the facts. So you can look into this. So that is, first brief them, because the union member should know as to what is the fact in this particular case. 2. If required, he can also conduct a quick and an impartial inquiry to double check the facts. Suppose if the union members are not willing to agree with that, so he can also take the union member along with them. So conduct a very quick inquiry to ascertain the facts in this particular case, so that the union is also satisfied as to these are the facts without hiding any facts in front of them. Then the third step in the course of action: identify the lapses on the part of the management to see if there are any lapses like need for regular training for soft skills and sensitization on the issues like road rages. So okay, in this case the driver has acted violently. He is the one who has resorted to the violence. But maybe he has resorted to the violence because there is no proper briefing from the management, there is no regular training program, the soft skills are not imparted to them. So that is considered to be lapses on the part of the management. So that should also be addressed, because you cannot completely blame the driver for his behavior, but what is the effort that has been taken by the management to address all those things? So you try to address that as well. Revise as required and circulate the conduct rules to the employees and to the members of the union. So if you feel that the existing conduct rules are not very clear, you just revise all those things and circulate that to the members of the city drivers union and also to the other workers who are part of the organization. And then after doing all those things, you can also accept to the demand of the union on the conditions that the management may reserve the right to reduce the compensation in future cases for violation of the conduct rules. So this is what he is saying. So what he is saying, that the next step that he is taking is that, okay, in this case he wanted to be compassionate, taking care of the interest of the diverse family, and at the same time he is also being what? And at the same time he is also trying to take care of the interest of the public, and at the same time he is also taking care of the demand that is made by the union members. At the same time, he is also wanted to discipline them by bringing in certain changes in the conduct rules, circulating them. If there is a need for a training, put them in a training program. So all these things to be done. And then finally, apart from that, as a joint commissioner, he can also coordinate with the traffic department to reduce the congestion on the busy roads and explore the possibility of installation of traffic signals at the accident prone intersections, because this has happened in an intersection, probably it is an accident prone area. So in those areas he can coordinate with the department, that is he can coordinate with the traffic department, and then wherever there is a need for an accident, there is a possibility of an accident, in those places at the intersections you can keep the traffic cameras or the traffic signals, and you can try to prevent the accidents. So these are the various actions that may be taken in the above situation to diffuse the tension and to holistically address this particular issue. All right. So, this is the way that you can approach the case studies. So, we have almost completed all the case studies for the year 2022. So, in the coming lectures, we will take up the case study for the other years. So, if you want the PPT of this particular case study, you can also get it from my Telegram channel, that is Babu 337. Thank you very much for watching this particular video. All the very best. God bless.